Okay, everybody. This riff was not requested, but what's so interesting in working with three different groups. So I'm so blessed that I get to work with men, betrayed betrayers, couples, and women, the betrayed. And I actually could feel in my body this resistance to use these titles as identifiers because I truly believe one of the things that happens is this identity crisis, these titles, these um, exactly these titles of um, self-identifying. I am a betrayer. I am betrayed um, because I think that we can get stuck in those identities, and we are so much more. And not just obviously, these events happened, and they are massively significant. And I don't want to minimize that for a second. And we are so much more for the majority of the women here. You have been alive for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. That is a lot of years to be in your lifetime. And so to take your lifetime and to choose the identity of betrayed to be the top of the list and for that to be the forefront of one's identity and for it to be such a painful identity as the identity to be the leading identity, I think can be something that ends up really holding us back. And I think it's just a very important conversation and awareness and consciousness to bring to the conversation. And so what I was leading with is that on a weekly basis, there seems to be this like overarching theme that comes to the surface. And this week's theme has been this concern, this resistance of allowance, and the allowance being, what if I allow myself to let in joy, to let in whatever it is, forgiveness, to let in um, reconciliation, to let in the possibility of moving away from the pain and the suffering, to let in the possibility of shedding some of not the story, but shedding some of the hurt, to put some distance from discovery, put some distance from that part of my life. What if I do that? And what I find is this real big fear that if we don't keep it alive, if we don't keep it on the front burner with the flame up high, it's going to happen again. If I don't keep my eye on it and I don't watch everything, it's going to happen again. And I guess what I would say to that is that true? Maybe. I don't know if that's true. And I suppose there's a cost on both sides of that because living in that heightened state of vigilance and living in that energy and that frequency, it's like living on the edge of a cliff and always being afraid of falling off the edge. And and here's the thing, and I'm going to take it out of the betrayal conversation for a second and discovery and everything blowing up. I'm going to take it out of this context for a second, okay, and put it in a different context altogether. Let's imagine for a moment that you started a new job, a whole new career, okay? Something brand new. Not even a job, let's just say a hobby. Let's just say you decided, like I'm going to use myself for example. I'm going to go and I'm going to take art lessons. I want to learn how to do watercolor. And I started to sabotage myself. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna feel like such a fool. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna be the worst. Everybody's gonna be better than me. I'm just gonna be awful. Or I go the other extreme and I say, you know what? I have a feeling about this. I have an intuition about this. I got an intuitive hit about this that I'm gonna take to this and I'm gonna be really good. And I'm gonna make beautiful artwork and I'm gonna sell this beautiful artwork and I'm gonna be the next amazing artist, and I'm going to be so good, and it's going to cause me to experience isolation because people in my life are going to be jealous of me, and it's going to cost me friendships, and maybe my family won't like this about me, and so I've already either made a story in my mind about that I'm going to be awful, or I'm possibly going to be amazing. And either of these scenarios are going to cost me in some way. It's going to cost me because I'm going to be a failure, or it's going to cost me because I'm going to be hugely successful. Here's the thing in both cases. Neither of those things are going to happen tomorrow. Neither of them are. And so here's the thing with both of them. I go to the art class, I start the process, I'm loving it, and as it's unfolding, I can continue to course correct all along the way. I can decide I'm really loving this. I could I could I could have somebody work with me a little bit closer. I could get an art coach. I could have somebody help me with my mindset. There's all sorts of different iterations of myself and how this can unfold. I don't have to figure it all out today in this moment. What happens is we start on a journey on Monday, May 30th, and we've already projected what's going to happen 2, 3, 4 years down the road and freak ourselves out and we kill it. And so, what if we just took one step? And if we got a little wobbly, we just took one step and just got grounded and sort of got stabilized and went, oh, okay, all right, I took a step. All right. Feeling pretty good. All right. This is good. This is feeling good. I'm going to take one more step. Oh, okay, cool. One more step. That's good. That's good. I'm feeling pretty good. All right. Okay, cool. And that's how we walked. And we just kept checking in with ourselves and asked ourselves, how am I doing now? And then stayed with ourselves and answered the question, how am I doing now? Think I'm doing pretty good. Okay, cool. Or how am I doing now? I'm not feeling so well. Okay, what would you like to do about it? I want to stop. Okay, no problem. I'd like to get some help. Okay, let's do that. The thing that we do is we freak ourselves out. We don't feel a certain sort of good way about something. We don't check in with ourselves and we just move on. And what I want to suggest is instead of taking ourselves out of the conversation, stay with ourselves. So here's a really interesting piece of this puzzle. In conversations this week, this idea of what if I get closer to my partner and the whole thing falls apart? And asking the question, okay. And when you ask that question of yourself, what did you come up with? I didn't answer the question. I just said it out loud, and or I said it to myself, and I couldn't answer the question. It's like, oh, okay. Well, why don't we answer that question? And what I'm noticing is that this is a trend of asking these emotionally dysregulating questions, these sort of frantic, in our mind questions, but we don't stick around with ourselves long enough to stop and sit with ourselves and answer the question. It's either we think somebody else is going to have the answer, or we don't stick around long enough to even answer the question. And we just let it linger, and that turns into angst and anxiety. And then we have this like list of unanswered inquiries and unanswered contemplations. And we are sitting with a whole host of low and medium grade anxieties because we don't stay with ourselves and just unpack them. And I think one of the greatest things that a coach, a healer can do, and I'm not so even sure that even therapy does this, because I think therapy is going to take you back to the scene of the crime and sort of dig in and dig in. But I think what you can do with your coach or a healer is answer the questions, answer the questions. Allow yourself to answer the questions and just see it from a different perspective. Just just see things just from a slightly different perspective. Because sometimes just a slightly different perspective. I'm not saying change your whole mind and your whole personality and your whole life and make these big, huge, bold, wild changes in your life. But I'm saying sometimes turning things just ever so slightly, like, huh, yeah, yeah, I didn't really quite see it that way. Or yeah, yeah, what if that? Huh. Yeah, let me try that on and sort of plant that seed and let that sort of simmer and see whether or not that can take some roots. See how that sort of sits with me for a little bit. Let me see how my nervous system sort of sits with that for a little bit. How that can unfold, because we don't get it all at once. That's sort of the interesting thing, and we're going to get to it in the program a little bit later. But when we talk about like manifesting our life and sort of creating a life and who are we becoming, we don't become everything all at once, right? It's like we're like we meet somebody and then we're sort of dating them and it unfolds and then we're creating a life together, or if we're sort of starting a job and then we're sort of growing into the job and then we sort of get a series of promotions and then we become, at a higher level, or we start sketching and then all of a sudden we start painting and then we sort of, eventually become at a higher level of an artist. We don't start and then become something the next day. Same thing with like when we're manifesting something, we don't get everything like all of a sudden, right? Like we wouldn't even be able to handle it. We don't have the capacity. If it worked that way, right? If we sat and we were like, what is it that I want? It's like, okay, I want to have like, this um the body of my dreams and the house of the dreams, the relationship of my dreams, and all the money in the world. And I want a yacht and this and that and the material things. And all of a sudden, like they all literally dropped into your life all at once. We literally would not have the capacity to handle all of it at once. We just wouldn't. And so it doesn't happen that way. And so it's the same thing with the things that we want and the who we're becoming and in our with our own being and in within our relationships. And so when we have a fear of either something working out or something not working out, it's not going to work out all at once. And it's not going to usually, it's not all going to fall apart all at once. Now, we have seen in this experience that we've had our life shatter in an instant. And we're still here. And so, for those of you that are still in your relationship, yes, the relationship that you had shattered all at once. And also, for those of you that are still in your relationship, and also the bridge, you're still here. And so, two things exist at once. And that is the fascinating thing of it all. Yes, what was crumbled. And also, you're still here. And so, two things exist at once. And so, whatever it is that you're creating, you're not going to create it all at once. And it's not going to fall apart and disappear all at once. And so, that is sort of the juxtaposition of life is that it unfolds just like we become. It doesn't happen all at once. And so I want you to start thinking of things as one step, one breath, acclimate, adjust, allow your nervous system to come into sort of metabolize and come into homeostasis, harmonize, ground, center, breathe. Okay, ask yourself, am I ready for another step? Am I ready for another piece? Am I ready? Am I ready to move? And then you'll know. And that's when you start to build more self-trust. And then you'll know. Oh, okay. So with that, I'm sending you a lot of love. I hope there was something here for you, a piece of this transmission that resonated for you and brought you some peace, some love, some clarity. And I'll see you again really soon.